And we can see that Conjure's Calling is already in hand, so if Astromancer sticks, summons an 8-drop, and then suddenly Conjure's Calling gives you like a ton of 7-drops.
Yeah. I mean, the Astromancer definitely can be pretty big, but I think for them, their priority was really to hit that giant as early as possible. That's kind of why they went with the double book of Spectres. But, you know, talking about the warrior list, one of the other kind of sacrifices you have to make to put all these bomb cards in your deck is you do kind of have to sometimes cut a bit of removal. So, like, there's no Omega Devastators in the list, for instance. And as you said, no Super Collider. So I think that does kind of help the mage not have to necessarily push all their threats. But here, for the warrior, do you think you just want to trade and shield slam? Yeah, it's a bit awkward, but you can also just use the weapon if you want to keep the 3/3 instead.
Northern at this point is just trying to keep control of the board. They know that if the mage runs too far out of control, then they're going to run out of brawls. And once the brawls are gone and your opponent's able to get Conjurer's Calling on something very big, that can just spell disaster. So they want to try to avoid that if they can.
Yeah.
See.
So the Dragonborn Scorcher here lines up pretty well with the weapon. So that's really nice, getting a minion on the board, possibly a Conjurer's target for next turn.
I'm not sure they're going to want to use Conjurer's Calling on a 5-drop. They're going to want to save it for stuff like the Crowd Roaster if they can. And either way, it doesn't matter because the Dynamatic is just going to clear off the board. But at this stage, Northern is just running out of stuff to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a bit of an issue here for Nordavant. I mean, without having had much card drop until now, it's kind of a problem. I think they're really just looking for a turn where they can actually use this Acolyte and Warpath together, right? I mean, that's what they need, they need answers. And this Conjurer's Calling off the Fire Tree Witch Doctor is pretty big here, right? You know, you're talking about running out of threats, but if you get another Conjurer's Calling, that's a lot that you can make out of even mediocre-sized threats.
And you were just talking about the Acolyte Warpath turn. I think this is about as good as it's going to get for you, realistically speaking. Clearing 2 minions, drawing 2 cards. I mean, you draw 3 most likely, because he has to kill the Acolyte as well, so it's a pretty good follow-up.
Yeah, it seems very well positioned here for Nordavant. And as you said, I mean, running out of cards was maybe looking like an issue for them, but now they're going to be able to solve that. And I mean, the issue here for Ents is that they don't really have any, you know, sizable threats. This is where that Astromancer now would have been so impactful, getting a 9-drop. Instead, they're going to have to, play a Crowd Roaster on this Acolyte?
Either play the Rabble Bouncer or Twilight Drake. I don't think they're going to play Crowd Roaster just to basically do nothing.
Yeah.
New mechs in the late game, courtesy of the Mega Assembly or like Blast Master Boom, that makes Crowd Roaster more useful.
Fair enough. I mean, you don't think they want to just get it down to get a more aggressive 7-drop down and kind of apply pressure? Do you think they... Because right now it's about finding a way to use these Conjurer's Callings, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where maybe the Rabble Bouncer and then just using the weapon to kill the Acolyte here makes sense as well? Or do you think you can even just go face with the weapon and ignore the Acolyte?
You want to kill the Acolyte just so there's no like random like 1 damage thing that could matter later on.
Sure. I mean, there's no...
It's just whether or not they want to get the Conjurer's Calling going next turn.
Ooh. There's no execute, but that Ironbeak Owl that we just saw Nordavant draw would have actually been really good. The Acolyte had been left on board here, right? Being able to silence that Twilight Drake and kill it with the Acolyte would have been very huge. So in the end, that choice from Ents choosing to actually kill the Acolyte makes a fairly big difference. But this Dynamatic is actually going to pair very well with this Ironbeak Owl instead.
So use Iliax as well, because that would leave the Owl up, but this is a full clear.
Yeah.
Remove that Conjurer's Calling potential this turn, but it's always going to be a factor as long as Ents just gets 1 minion on the board to connect to Conjurer's Calling. It's always going to be huge.
Yeah, I think it feels too good there to remove that 4/10 with just the silence and the Dynamatic as well. And right now you don't need the HP from the Ziliax, so I really like using the Dynamatic there as well. Also more difficult to deal with from Ence's perspective to deal with the Ziliax. I mean, to deal with the Dynamatic and the Ziliax right now, at least.
Yeah. And at this point, with both Dynamatics gone, the Crowd Roaster suddenly gets a massive upswing in value, knowing that it's not just going to be like a 1-for-1. Like, you kill one for your Crowd Roaster, Dynamatic kills it back immediately. And we can see that their response is actually very difficult. They have to throw the Wrench Caliber and the Ziliax, which is not the greatest turn, and in fact doesn't let them kill any Rabble Bouncers coming down here easily at all. If they want to do that, they could just go with Harrison Jones as well. That's also fine.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big downside of Range Caliber, right? It's a fairly low impact. I mean, getting the bombs in the deck is nice because they've applied a little bit of pressure, but that's not really the way they're looking to win this matchup, I don't think. So, yeah, I mean, the Harrison here seems fairly tempting. You can choose to Conjurer's Calling it immediately. Do you think that's worth it?
Conjurer's Calling in hand, so I think they're going to have to use them at some point. An alternative they could have done this turn is go Rabble Bouncer Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah,
that's also an option, but I don't mind getting rid of the weapon here. And those are some very unfortunate 5 drops.
Yeah, Growl the Shark, not very good here.
Yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate.
Do you think this Warpath is going to be the best option here, or do you even want to maybe see the Range Caliber Mented Elec to maybe play a bit more aggressively, try to shuffle a couple more bombs in?
I don't think shuffling bombs is that big of a concern at this point. Again, you want to try to make sure that none of these minions are getting hit by Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah.
Like, Growl the Shark, while it is a 2-2, it's still a 5-drop, so it can still get hit by the Conjurer's Calling that Northern knows is in the hand to get additional 5-drops. And we do see Khadgar in hand as well, so if any minion is hit by the Conjurer's Calling with that on board, then you're getting 2 of them.
Yeah, a board of 4 5-drops is probably enough to force a brawl, right? And I feel like as the mage in this matchup, it's very important to try and force as lower value brawls as you can, because that's when you get to really punish them with the later turns. And I mean, that's really where Conjurer's Calling is so powerful. It looks like they are going to go with the Elec here. So I mean, this is going to leave the Growl. I mean, we expect. Do you expect to then see the Khadgar here from Ents?
Depends on how much more value they think the Khadgar can get. Like, how big can this Khadgar go? Can you get it on Giants, or are you expecting to get it on 7-drops? To get too much better than this, then I think it just makes sense to do it now. The problem is that now that we do see the Scorcher drawn, they will want to get rid of this Elec before 2 more bombs are shuffled into the deck, because hell, they are very much at risk of dying at this point.
Yeah, at 14 HP, there's 2 more bombs in the deck, and another one can be shuffled in with this Range Caliber, so it would take a pretty ridiculous set of draws for those bombs to get drawn right now and kill them. But by leaving up the Elec can also go face, that shuffles, and the weapon can go face, which sets them down to only having to draw 2 bombs to die, and you get an extra bomb shuffled in with the Wrench Caliber. So it could lead to a pretty crazy scenario here for this game. But oof, Quartz Elemental is a pretty low roll.
Bomb picked up. That will allow for some healing, and the fact that has taught me that 6 damage isn't going face anymore. That was a pretty good turn.
Yeah, I mean, the Quartz Elemental seemed like, because the warrior has so many ways to damage it, it's really easy to like kind of deactivate them. But the Rotten Apple Bombs, as you said, is actually just a lot of healing. And I think here what's really nice about that is even if your opponent clears it with a brawl or even just a quadruple warpath here, then 5 warpaths, then you can still you're still at least gaining the HP, which kind of makes a big difference at this stage, as the warrior had really been able to apply quite a lot of pressure actually.
And even though the Quartz Elementals are about to be damaged, you can still use Sunfury Protector to give them taunt, so even though they can't attack, they still are very big minions with that taunt bonus. It looks like they're not even going to go all the way. It looks like they're just going to clear as much as they can and then go ahead and use the devastated to leave only 1 minion on the board.
Yeah, I think this kind of makes a bit of sense. They want to make sure they get the extra bomb value because they've kind of seen how good it's been at applying pressure so far. And I don't think they want to use this Devastator, it looks like, because I assume they want to maybe hit a better target with it. Although you're always expecting this one of these Quartz Elementals to at least be Conjurer's Calling here, right? Like, I think there's 2 in hand right now.
I say, even though they know that Conjurer's Calling is there, they still do have the Brawl. They did draw Dr. Boom Mad Genius that turn, so they're not looking too scared. It's just what other threats are going to show up, because they can deal with 1 board state, but they can't really deal with 2 or 3 more at this point. Some really good hero powers.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're really just looking for a time when they can actually play that Dr. Boom. Earth Elemental, that's probably the highest roll you can get off the 5-drop, right?
Not to mention there's also the, what's it called? The Snapjaw Shellfire, which means even if they go for the Omega Devastator and try to deal 10 to it, the Shellfire will actually take the hit instead. So that's actually a pretty decent roll as well.
Yeah, pretty hilarious. And now it's actually surrounded by taunts on both sides, which is just, I mean, that's kind of the optimal positioning for that Snapjaw shell fight there in the end.
Yeah.
So
this looks like yeah, that is.
Yeah, this has to be a brawl, right? I mean, you can't really afford to get hit by this Earth Elemental and the rest of this board a lot. And I mean, this is not that bad for Ents though, even if they do get brawled here, right? Because they are in a scenario where they've kind of forced a brawl on, Conjurer's Calling on some 5-cost minions. It's not exactly the most threatening board in the world.
They're going for Dr. Boom. That's interesting. Again, this sort of shows one of the weaknesses of the Maze Stick is its lack of ability of getting burst damage, but I see an Alex Strauser in Ents' hand, and they currently do have, 7, 11, they have 17 on board, which means that they will be able to push Nordovin down. How much? 7 minus 23 is
down
16.
To 5. I think it would be after the armor, but yeah, it depends whether they attack with this 2-2 or not. Ooh, yeah. Another bomb and another one. Wow, there's pressure. All of a sudden, maybe the defensive Alex Strauser looks like an option in a turn or two.
Though at the same time, Ents do know that they are the aggressor in this matchup. They do know that eventually Dr. Boom Mad Genius is so much value that it will just win the game. Putting the aggression while also making sure you're not terribly weak to Brawl, because Brawl plus Omega Devastator does clear basically any board that Ents at this point can create, which is probably why they were so willing to throw the Dr. Boom Mad Genius out there, because they had the ability to answer almost anything that Ents could do.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, they're gonna, they're not gonna die here, so they're still gonna survive. Take a lot of damage, and as you said, they are kind of the Ents are the aggressor in this matchup. So getting the warrior down to 6 can be kind of scary. Although, if this brawl turns out pretty well and Nordovintia don't have to actually use the Omega Devastator, then just being able to hero power would actually be pretty good as well.
Okay then. 2-2 survives the brawl, then they will be back at 6 health and 9 armor, which is 15 health, and from 15, there's not too much the mage can do to really go all the distance. Again, without putting themselves on the board. We can see Nordovin's hand is very good at dealing with stuff on the board. Even ignoring the Devastator, we do see that there is a Boom Reaver in the hand. And, Blast Master Boom, which are going to summon a lot of minions with Rush to clean up the board. So
yeah, there's currently 5 bombs in the Ents deck, so you'd get the 4 Boombots that's right now. Now down to 1 bomb left in the deck, so... Oh, 0 bombs, wow. It turns out if that brawl had gone the other way and the... if Nordovint had chosen not to attack with that vicious scrap something? I forget the little 2-2's name.
Vicious Scrap Hound, yeah, you were pretty close. Very close
Yeah,
to Fish's scale hide. They do similar things.
exactly. That's kind of why I was like, I was almost about to say scale height, then I'm sure it's SC something. Yeah. But now they kind of have the Ziliax here, right? Like, can you really afford to take the risk of, you know, not getting health here? I mean, even as it sits right now, ooh,
Roy.
that. I mean, the Leroy is kind of good because it clears off the Omega Devastator, but at the same time, they were probably just hoping for some bigger minions that they could taunt up with the Sun Fury, right?
Yeah, I mean they have to go face of Leroy here. Like I said, they're the aggressor, and
Yeah.
there is a what's it called? A bronze gatekeeper in Northern Town, which does mean that they're going to be able to like keep themselves alive for quite a while. That we do see. They are able to pretty much fully clear the board and put a massive taunt in the way.
Yep, and put that bomb in the deck, which means if they do happen to hit that 1 in 7 to draw the bomb here, that would actually be lethal as well. Oh,
Yeah,
wait, yeah, that's just lethal with the hero power.
Exactly. So that is 2-0 for Northern. This maze deck currently not doing too well. It's been doing pretty well in the Specialist Open Cups, but so far today it's been pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really where we see like the Bomb Warrior mattering again, right? Like in that kind of scenario, the Bomb Warrior actually turned out to kind of put in the finishing blows because of all those bombs that got drawn for ends. Like Nordavent really could actually apply enough pressure to find lethal at the end there. So I mean that's really where you see the difference between bringing those two strategies. You know, with the Control Warrior, it would have been much more targetable by Ence's lineup, which seems like maybe something they were trying to target. And now the Warrior for Nordavent has actually got the win already because it had that extra pressure from the bombs. So I think that kind of indicates one of the big kind of decision lines that these teams have to make with the bombs versus the control, and why we see, I mean, both of these teams, which are both at 4-0 so far, having brought Bomb Warrior today, they both recognize the potential for it to win those games with just applying pressure sometimes.
Yes, the bombs, like I said earlier, just give you like very specific edges in certain unfavorable matchups, like decks with Chef Nomi in it, for example. We have seen lately in these tournament lineups a lot more players are including Chef Nomi just because of how good it is against the Warriors, but if you're using Virus and Stable Elements to draw your deck and suddenly your opponent's going like Augmented Elic and then Wrench Caliber Clockwork Goblin, that's like 23 damage. That's really hard for Nomi Priest to come back from.
Yeah, and here we're actually going to see the Nomi mirror, basically. I mean, Nomi Priest here versus the Tempo Rogue, which has the Chef Nomi as kind of the top end. I mean, this is an interesting rogue list. It also has one Spirit of the Shark, which is an innovation we've been seeing come into more and more of these rogue lists recently, mostly on ladders so far. It's the first time I'm really seeing it in a tournament setting, but with synergies with like Life Drinker, SI7 Agent, and of course making a ridiculously massive Edwin Van Cleef, the Spirit of the Shark can actually be pretty interesting.
Yes. You also missed one very important interaction. It's also very good with Evil Miscreant because with Evil Miscreant, it is a combo card, so it'll give you 4 lackeys, and then the lackeys also have Battlecry effects. So suddenly, that one Miscreant gave you 4 lackeys, and then each lackey goes up twice.
Yeah.
So it can quickly just overwhelm your opponent with just so much value.
Yeah, I mean, you get incredible value from like the Ethereal lackeys. Discovering 2 spells is just ridiculous. I mean, 4 damage for 1 mana. There's a lot to like with the Spirit of the Shark. So I suppose that's why we've been seeing it come more into kind of more and more of these lists. But it does make it a little bit slower because playing Spirit of the Shark as a 4-mana 0/3 stealth on turn 4 is pretty slow. But I think the Rogue has so many other tempo tools that they can kind of deal with that one turn that can be a bit slower.
And they had the option of going for the Miscreant there just because they could Shadow Step it later, but they just want to make sure that they always get those lackeys going. Little lackeys are, and they don't want to miss any if they can.
Yeah, and I think the Shadow Step has quite a couple uses in this deck, especially once again with Spirit of the Shark. You can get quadruple those values prize in a way. So I think that's kind of the reason they also want to maybe save the Shadow Step here. Do you think you'd ever consider sapping this Acolyte? There's not really many sap targets, right? Or do you think it's just too tempting to play the Life Drinker?
It's not about temptation, but more about you can save the sap until turn 5 and then go sap Evil Miscreant as your combo enabler for it. I think the Acolyte really accomplishes anything this turn because are the aggressor. Usually the way Nomi Priest gets there is just through getting a giant horde of grave horrors down that the rogue usually has a very hard time dealing with, and then just steamrolling from there. So the rogue has to make sure that they are like so aggressive that they can just stop that from happening. Elephant's opener in general is looking really strong. They have the double Acolyte, so the hand size is not going to be an issue. They have Auctioneers, so they're going to be able to cycle through an insane amount of cards in their deck. And once they're done cycling, suddenly those Grave Horrors are costing 0 mana. They can just put 4 down in 1 turn, and that's usually enough to get Rogue out of the game.
I mean, the Grave Horrors are definitely something you would rather be drawing later here, but with the Auctioneer and the coin, there are quite a bit that they can do in that Auctioneer turn. I mean, the only issue with Forbidden Words sometimes in those kind of positions is that you can't actually cast it if you don't have a target for it, and if you're on 0 mana, you can't actually, cast it with the Auctioneer on board. So that can be a bit of an issue. And I think, here we're going to see the sap Miscreant that we were kind of discussing last turn. I mean, they really just need the sap in this case to activate the Miscreants. And I think you want to slow down your opponent's cycle just to kind of slow down the chance that they're able to get all their key cards and actually get to their Nomi and those Grave Horrors very early. Like, as weird as it is, as the rogue, you have to kind of buy a little bit of time in order to assemble your burst to actually kill them, right? Before that they can kind of put up that big wall you were talking about.
Yes, and I brought this up earlier, but one of Rogue's main weaknesses that players have slowly caught onto is the fact that it is a relatively slow deck in the early game. Like, Evil Miscreant, as incredibly strong a card it is, it's the only real, good play on 3 the deck has besides Raiding Party. And even then, you have no 1-drop. 2, which doesn't put on that much pressure. And then after that, you're basically just relying on just 0 mana Dread Corsairs and just Pirates just flying over, turns 4 to 8. Usually turn 8 is the point where you're planning to win as the rogue player. If you're going much later, it's very difficult. And you obviously can't do it much earlier, unless a ridiculous Ed with Van Cleef has come down earlier, which didn't happen in this game.
Yeah, I mean, we see here the Power Word Shield giving him more possible draws from the Acolyte is very powerful, and also the Forbidden Words actually killing the Miscreants. It's a very efficient way for these priests to deal with the Miscreant. Basically 1 mana to deal with it, which is really nice, and obviously also helping him tick down on those Grave Horrors. So we're kind of getting closer and closer to the point at which the priest can build the wall. So do you think from this point, kind of looking at both teams' hands, do you think the priest is actually in a favored position now?
I think the priest is in an incredibly favored position. So if you look at the hand, we see that there is the Auctioneer, and there's just a load of 0 mana spells they can cast right off the bat. They're drawing another card. There we go, another 0 mana spell. They have Silence for Edwin Van Cleef. They have the Grave Horrors. The only thing that they're realistically missing at this point is the Seance, so they can get additional Grave Horrors. Yeah. But looking at both players' perspectives, it is very difficult for me to say that Ents is in a good position right now. I do like this use of the Shadow Step to bounce the Glowstone Technician.
Yeah, I mean, hand buffs have not proven to be particularly powerful, but as a 4 mana 3/4 that gives all your minions in your hand 2/2, that seems, a lot more powerful. I mean, especially making the lackeys a 1 mana 3/3 is pretty silly. And here we're going to see the big Auctioneer turn from Nordvent. I mean, we can expect them to pretty much draw as much as they can kind of put together these 0-cost spells. I mean, this is really what they're looking for. This, Forbidden, Lazul's scheme, actually, not really getting much value out of it, but here they can actually find the Topsy-Turvy to get the kill. They're still looking for a couple 0-cost spells, though, before they can get to having these Grave Horrors for free. And these Silences chained on the whelp here is actually very powerful. Now we can see the first grave horror coming down, and it's looking very tricky now for the rogue, even more so than the turn before, where you said that the priest was incredibly favored from this position.
And even if the Nomi Priest managed to like whiff a little bit, once the circle was drawn, if they just chose to stop, then they still had the
Yeah.
cleric pyromancer circle, so they were in no danger of drawing basically everything they wanted. And yeah, and it's just giving up right away. They're like, no, I can't deal with 4 grave horrors, and that's why Nomi Priest has been touted by a lot of good players as just being the new patron of the modern age. It's a very
Yeah.
hard deck to pilot, but when you can pilot it well, it destroys people.
It is.
I mentioned
It is also like can be a very high skill deck, not because of its namesake Nomi. Like Nomi's pretty simple: draw your deck, play the card. The skill in the deck is really just all about how you get to the points of drawing your whole deck. Putting together those turns with the pyromancers and the clerics, and of course the gadgets and auctioneers as well there. And I mean, those grave horrors so good against the rogue. Really, no answer that the rogue is going to have to that. So, I mean, it seems like the analysts here were right with their prediction for a Nordavant win, as we've seen a 3-0 for Nordavant. I mean, I don't think any of us were expecting it to be that extreme, but now Nordavant should be guaranteed making the playoffs. So, congratulations to them. Any final thoughts you want to add about the series, Paradox?
I'd say, just like the last series, it's probably a little bit closer than what the 3-0 record would say. Like,
Yeah.
these games, like especially the first one, I think was pretty out of the Finn's hands. The
Mm.
fact that the Mountain Giant into Conjur's Calling came up so early, and like that last game, it's just really like I don't think there was much that they could do, unfortunately. But it looks like we're about to pass it over to the analyst, so that'll be it from us for today.
Yep. Over to you.
I'm not entirely sure if you're done for today, but you're done for now, that's for sure. Welcome back, everyone, to the analyst desk. I am here with Wicked Good and Lesamos once again. We definitely enjoyed the series, even though it was another 3-0, the same result as the last season that that these teams played each other, which is kind of difficult on ends, maybe. Lesamos, do you think it could have gone the other way?
I think game 1 and game 3, Ents really just didn't get their hand together. It could have went the other way if we saw the draws go a little differently. Game 2, I think Ents really did have a chance to put it away, but Nordavit just fighting hard and scratching by to get those bombs and eventually get that lethal. Could have went the other way, but it just wasn't in the cards for Ents today.
I think you're muted, Wicked, so I can see you talking, but I can't hear.
Yay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that you don't really need Huntrace to win 2 of those 3 games. Like when you get 2 giants on turn 4 in game 1, I mean that's the reason that the Spell Mage is favored against the Dragon Mage, because the Spell Mage can do that and the Dragon Mage can't, just because of Elemental Evocation. And game 3 they just didn't get anything to pressure the priest at all, and then they had to do things like play a Leroy and evolve it with a lackey just to trade off an Acolyte of Pain. I mean, once you're seeing a rogue doing that, you know that things aren't going well. But yeah, the game 2, it was unfortunate that they didn't draw a giant despite having both Book of Specters. But they also had 2 Rabble Rousers in hand the whole time that they could have made into 7 drops. And I'm really wondering why they decided to hold on to those and decided instead to evolve a bunch of 5 drops, which sometimes worked out for them, like when they evolved when they got the Snapshot Shellfighter with the Earth Elemental and another taunt surrounding it. But the 7 drops generally would give much more value, and I was surprised that they didn't try to swing for the fences with that a little bit more.
Okay, so I always take these small notes about every game, and for game 3, my note was desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Also, talking about the queue order, like because we were kind of surprised to see the tempo rogue in the last game coming out against the priest. Why was that, Wicked?
I mean, that's statistically, I think that's probably going to be their best chance. I mean, the Bomb Warrior was banned out. the spell mage can still get run over by it. So I think the tempo rogue in that case was probably the best chance for them to get anywhere. I mean, the mage is just too slow. The mid hunter can get wrecked by the wild pyromancer. It's probably pretty close between the mid hunter and the rogue, but and I got to imagine they were probably. I would have a hard time staving off Tilt after that game too also, because they came so close and just lost it at the very end.
So now Nordavind is placed for the top 12, I believe. Now they still have to play the rest of their matches just for seeding. Lesimus, how do you think this impacts their mentality in play?
So I mean, you can go two ways with it, right? You can say, all right, dominant, want to keep trying hard, and I think that's probably what they'll do. But they could always turn around and go, all right, we're gonna throw some meme decks together for next week and just we're in top 12, so it doesn't matter. So you can really go either way. I know a lot, like in some other tournaments, people will meme it out if they've already qualified. But I think best practices tends to be to keep it together and try hard for the rest of the tournament. I think that's probably what they'll do. But who knows? They could prove me wrong and come together with some spicy Hakar Warlock next week or something.
It's still also relatively early in the expansion. They might use that opportunity to experiment with some lists that they wouldn't otherwise be super comfortable with, but maybe they try something that's maybe not quite meme deck, but maybe they try something that's a little bit more off the beaten path that they're not as experienced with, and kind of see how it goes in a real tournament setting.
Yeah.
Well, definitely. Thank you for your input. I think you're going to cast in the next game again. So we'll see what the next game will be. I don't know yet. I don't think production knows yet either. So we'll just go to a hopefully slightly shorter break than last time. But these 3-0s are hurting us a bit as well. Thank you guys. And Welcome back, everyone, and it's been well, but we're here with the third round of the Swiss for tonight, round 6. We have Gamers Origin versus Attack Mode. Gamers Origin, of course, being a pretty famous French team with one of our friendly casters of last season, then playing as well, versus Attack Mode, the team that won House Rivalries and A last season. So it's a pretty hype match, and to top off the hype, they're both 4-1, so the winner continues to top 12. Our analysts are Dib and Wicked Good. Dib, what do you think of the decks that are going to be played?
We've got some interesting decks here, particularly attack mode. They've brought Murloc Shaman, not something that we probably expect to see very often. And then they've also got the Rogue, but kind of harkening back to the older builds of Rogue that were playing the more Thief package with the Vendetta, the Henchclan Burglar, the Blink Fox, and the Underbelly Fence. And then they've got that Dragon Mage, the kind of deck that we've seen in some of the matches before. And then they also had the Death Rattle Hunter, which got banned, that like 9 lives Oblivitron kind of build, which is really heavy on basically like the value that it can generate. And then maybe we can tell us about the Gamers Origin decks.
Yeah, so Gamers Origin, they brought more of a standard tempo rogue. They brought a bomb hunter and a mech bomb hunter, a bomb hunter, bomb warrior, and a Nomi priest. So lots of bombs, and then lots of bombs getting dropped from Nomi as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see how those decks line up against the unusual decks that Attack Mode has decided to bring. Clearly not what they have been practicing against quite as much.
I said normally I would ask you who's going to win, but I will ask you this. Wicked Good, why is this match going to be a 3?
Why is this match going to be a 3-0? You cut out there.
A 3-2. A 3-2.
A 3-2? Because I think some of these decks from Attack Mode can just kind of get ahead of the decks from Gamers Origin. Like, anytime that you have a Murloc Shaman, it can just kind of pull a win out of nowhere if it gets the right draw. And a lot of these matches are, when you start looking at the stats, are pretty favored in one way or the other. So it's going to depend a lot on the queue order.
Yeah. I definitely agree there. I think the queue order is going to be super important. And I think overall, these decks are kind of like, in a way, we've kind of got 3 aggro decks versus 3 aggro decks that we're going to be left with. Like the Dragon Mage is probably one of the slowest decks here. I mean, the Nomi Priest also can cycle really fast and kind of get to killing you pretty fast. So I think overall, I think maybe Gamers Origin will probably take this 3-2, I think.
Yeah, they look pretty favored. If they can if Attack Mode can get the right decks queuing into the right decks, they can pull this one out.
Okay, so what I hear is bombs, fireworks, and a 3-2. We're in for a spectacle. Wicked Good and Paradox take the call.
Well, thank you, and Paradox, welcome back to the stream. It's a pleasure to get to cast with you.
Yeah. So I was about to say, can I take it from here? Looks like
yeah. Go right ahead. So what are you thinking about these before we get into about how these two lineups match up?
Well, as far as individual players go, I think the Gamers Origin is they're pretty favored just because player quality is obviously very high. Like, I do see that the player that I'll be watching from the Gamers Origin perspective is Trek. Wasn't on my radar back in 2018, but he's done some very, very good things. Like last year, I actually met him first at HCT also, and he blew me away pretty quickly. So I've no doubt that he'll definitely be piloting these decks extremely well along with his teammates. But as far as the individual matchups go, I think Gamers Origin's lists are a lot more optimized. I have absolutely no idea why there is a Murloc Shaman in Attack Mode's lineup. I think that deck is going to be their undoing for sure. Then the Mage is kind of iffy too. It's playing cards like Mossy Horror, like 2 Mossy Horror. Don't know what that's about. So I'm not going to be biased at all when I say I think Gamers Origin is going to win. I think it's going to be either 3-0 or 3-1. I don't think we're going to Game 5. I'm very confident we won't be going to Game 5.
Yeah, I think a lot is going to come down to that Murloc Shaman. It's a very odd choice, but I mean, attack mode is 4-1 in this tournament, so I'm not all on the back of that Murloc shot, clearly, but they've been doing something right. So we'll have to see. And I will never not know Trek as the person who brought Discard Warlock to playoffs. I
did that? Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that because I do the dashboards for the HTT and for and now for the specialist qualifiers. I remember seeing that as one of the weird decks that I found when I was going through and making sure I hadn't classified anything wrong. and that sure was one of them. So but it looks like we are going to get into game and we're going to go see where we decide to start off for these two teams. And it looks like we're going to see the Bomb Warrior from Gamers Origin against the Rogue from Attack Mode. And prep rating party. That's a good way to start off.
Yes. There you go. So yeah, you can see the hands. We do see that there is the preparation, raiding party, and the evil miscreant. 3 of the best cards you want to be seeing early as the Rogue in this matchup. This could sort of like to my thoughts on Attack Mode's lineup being kind of questionable because they're running a lot of these burgle cards, and the vast majority of the community have ruled that these burgle cards are very inconsistent, and they don't really do very much, especially in this matchup. Like, see, a really powerful card because 0 mana deal 4 is insane.
Yeah, what are you targeting with it? I mean, that's the problem. I mean, I guess they can take out this Acolyte of Pain that we can, but that Vendetta isn't necessarily going to do a whole lot for them, and no burgle cards in hand right now either for the time being. Imagine this is just a pass turn. I don't think that they're going to want to prep out that. Do you ever prep out this raiding party on 1, or do you just wait for turn 3 to be able to do it with the Miscreant?
No, there's another reason why you don't do it too. Because imagine if they draw Edwin Van Cleef next turn, right? So they can go like coin, prep, raiding party, Edwin Van Cleef. And Games Origin has no way of dealing with that whatsoever. So I would be extremely surprised if they prepare this raiding party any time before the 3rd turn. They might not even do it on turn 3. They can do it on turn 4 and just play the Waggle pick right away. Yeah,
I mean, they can just coin the Miscreant into that too, so. And, you know, not a whole lot going on either for Gamers Origin, but that's the way they like it, is the Warrior in this matchup.
Yeah, the Warrior is definitely going to be the control deck in this situation, especially because of the lack of late game. There's no High Sparrow Togwaggle, there's no Chef Nomi. The only way that Attack Mode's going to get there is just by going face, and Rover and Acolyte of Pain and Shield Slam, that's going to be pretty difficult, at least for now.
Yeah, looks like they're going to put out that second Eternium Rover, just get as much potential armor gain as possible online, and make Attack Mode deal with stuff before they go face. Leroy into hand, but still not really a whole lot to do other than just dagger and send the dagger face.
And this comes back to what I've been saying time and time again while I've been on this desk. Tempo Rig is a really good deck. I have raved on and on about it on Twitter in the specialist format, how very dominant it is. But in no early game. Like, we're seeing its first actual plays on turn 3, and by that time, we got 3 very big minions for the Warrior down, so it's going to be very hard for them to win, I think.
Yeah, so they're going to prep out this raiding party, and then, I mean, you have to play the Miscreant, right? And even though it's going to proc all 3 of those effects on the 3 minions, but you still have to do it, right?
You say that, but there is that Hench Clan Burglar that would allow them to play the Vendetta and get an additional card, so it's possible that they don't have to play it on this turn.
Yeah, so that coming into hand, as I was saying that, I think, they are going to do that, and they're going to choose Arcane Explosion, Unleash the Beast, and an Unexpected Result. Yeah, that's an easy pick.
Yeah, Unleash the Beast is pretty strong.
Yeah. Then
I'm not sure you want to Vendetta here, just because Vendetta is a really good enabler for the Evil Miscreant. Attack Mode's hand doesn't really have an easy way of enabling it, right? They have Waggle Pick, which they're probably going to use Corsair in the same turn. And then the rest of their hand is just really top heavy, right? You can't play Leroy Unleash the Beast with it, so I think they